in a way, this could be considered the first Maimer of the Rebbe. Das heißt, right, Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe Chazit Basilegani with Biurim, and then there was the Maimer Yeshevas Beganim, which is also connected to the Mamore Elule, the from Kuntras Yud Shvat. And then, after the Rebbe finished the Hilula Mamorim, this is the first Maimer, which is Vele Mishpotim, and there was a Hemshech Tetzave, and then following that there was also V'Kibala Yehudim, Yud Aleph, Purim Yud Aleph, which is also connected to these inyanim. Now, what's fascinating is that the teichen of this Maimer is, what is a Rebbe? Which is Mamish Azay Shtalten Zachavek. We're beginning there Ashvi, and it's like the first Maimer Basilegani was what's the Aved of the day. And over here the Rebbe is being magdir, what does a Rebbe do? What's the relationship of a Rebbe with Chassidim or a Rebbe with Yidden? Now this Maimer, Vele Mishpotim Bichlal, is a classic. Das heißt, the Alter Rebbe in Teiraer, you have in Pashas Mishpotim, there's the Maimer with a beer on the Maimer, where it's explained what's the idea of Rai Mehem. And there's also another Maimer which is Kisisa and Teiraer. And these two Mamorim are in a way being mashlim each other. And when the Rebbe Chazit Taki, there was first Vele Mishpatim, then there was Kisisa Yud Aleph. We're going to be focusing on Vele Mishpatim. Just for some broader context, one of the Chidushim, or arguably the Chiddush of what the Baal Shem Tov brought in the world, the idea of what's Chassidus is a Rebbe. This is the new concept. Till then there was a Musig of a Rav Talmid, and alle inyonim of Darkei Chassidus really stem from that, and the different paths in Chassidus is all around that there's this concept called a tzaddik, a Rebbe, and as the Rebbe would always say, that the Baal Shem Tov is that the name Yisrael, the Eibishter saw that the Klal Yisrael's Beis Alphos, and he blew in Neshamas Yisrael their name, like when someone who's fainted, so you whisper his name in his ear, so that's Yisrael Baal Shem. And this is the idea of a neshama of a Rebbe. A Rebbe comes in and he's megala the neshamas of a Yid. This is what Chassidus is. Now, the Hasbara, what's this idea of Rebbe? So there's various language in Chassidus. Sometimes we call it neshama klolis, amol retman yichide klolis. In Rebbe Sprach, there's something called the Nosi Ader, amol sedor rav, umelech. There's different ways how we say, was is das der Zach? What's this Rebbe idea? But probably the most classic and the most Yesedistic, and the Rebbe said a few times, that the Yesod of what a Rebbe is the idea of Rai Mehem. And this is what this Maimer is going to be doing. This Yesod of a Rebbe Git Das is Rai Mehemne, Pashat, Vepashtas, he's a Meröye of a Inyan of a Munne to Yidden. Which in our language that would be as a Rebbe Git Chassidus. And Chassidus is that there's the inyanim which are in Makif, the inyanim which we have in Amunah, Be'etzem start settling and becoming pnimistic. Because it comes pnimistic b'ameach, therefore it's possible that it should also develop into Midas, and that's the idea of a Rebbe to give a Yid a chayis pnimi in alakus. Now, in Tanya, this is Perek Mem Beis. The beginning of Perek Mem Beis, that's the mocker for it. Al Yesod Zeh, that's the way it's in Teresh Bechsav, in Tanya, and then in Teresh Vapeh, so there's these two Mamorim, Vele Mishpatim and Kisisa in Tereir, where this idea was developed with new biurim, and the Rebbe spoke about the difference that Be'emes is saying an entirely new idea, B'yachas to Tanya. But this is the thing. What's a Rebbe? Specifically, over here we want to understand what's a Rebbe in Chassidus Chabad. What's the Alter Rebbe's understanding of this Musig of Rai, which is the Hagdara is Rai Mehem. Now, as we know, the Rebbe's, this is, I would say, in a way, Mamish, the beginning of Nesiyas. The last Maimer, which we have, the last Mugidik Maimer, Vatet Tetzave, is also on the same topic. Rai Mehemna, Mesh Ezon, Mefarnas Amuna B'Pnimis. This is like, it runs throughout. That Maimer is meyused on V'Kibla Yehudim Pezayim, which is Kisisa Ateres, which is the Kisisa Dike Maimer. Just to understand the context. There's two Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe, which all the Rabbeim chazed all of these Mamorim multiple times. There's a lot of Torah on this. So there's the HaMishpotim Mamorim and the Kisisa Mamorim, which that's where came out in Vata Tetzaveh, in the Rebbe's Biurim, it's like on many layers. So what we want to focus on is this Maimer. We want to understand what's the yesod of the Arai Mehemne. Ubim the Rebbe is going to be introducing a new Havana. Beginning Be'ikr, the big Chiddush starts in Sif Hey, in our Maimer, where the Rebbe turns around this whole idea, which is a Mamsham Apecha, which wasn't until now, and Tavshin Yud Aleph is a new word, and then in the end, in Sif Vav, the Rebbe's Mamsh is going to touch up in Aveda, very reich, Pasha the Aveda for Heinte Gedeiris. What does it mean, the Musig, what a Rebbe does in this generation? So it's a Yesod Zedikim.
What's the focus of the difference between the two Marmarim of the Alpha Rebbe?
Okay, so there are really two sides of one coin. In Vele Mishpatim Amorim, the language is das. We want to be mamshich das ala'am. This is basically based on Perek Mem Beis. And the Iker Ariches is, what do we gain from das? It says, what would the Yid look like without a Rebbe, and what does the Rebbe do for him? What does the Rai Mehemne do? In Kisisa Mamorim, the Sugi is Amun. That being Mamshech Amuneh, it shouldn't remain even Makiv, Gamba Pumachtarte, we want to bring into Pnimis. So there are really two halves which are mashlim each other. It's to get the full picture, it's kedai to also see those Mamorim. Over here, we're approaching it from this angle. Okay. We don't. Fine. Zlamani. Vele mishpatim ashtasim lifnei kisikna v'divri gamer. V'yadu adiuk de lifnei mulashon rabbi. V'achar kach ksiv kisikna belashon yochid. So the question is obvious in the Hemshech HaPsukim. We begin Vele mishpatim ashtasim lifnei, and so we're referring Moshe should deliver these mishpatim to Klal Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael's in the plural, lifneim, and then suddenly we say kisikne, we're talking to a Yid when you will buy Avedivri. So we just called the Yid Klal Yisrael Lashon Rabbim, so we should say ki yiknu Avedivri. Why we say Lashon Yachid? The beer of Chassidus is umavur bezeh the kisikne koilei al tevis lifneim ala mashakatzu shetosim dainu Moshe Rabbeinu. So the answer is in the Drush that it says Asher tosim lifneim, you will give them. Kisikne is you will buy. Who's the you? It's the Moshe Rabbeinu. We're going back to the beginning of the pasuk. Was meant us that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to purchase a Evet Ivri? What's a Pirish Amilis? So the beer is going to be that if we understand what the role of Moshe Rabbeinu is, to be mamshich das neshamas Yisrael, we'll be able to understand the drush, the kesher to kisikna evedif. Now the beer in the words is going to come later in the Maimer. Let's leave that for then. Okay, so the first question we have to deal with is, why do we need that Moshe Rabbeinu should give Yidden das? L'chayre, this is the Pashte Kasha. He didn't have das. This is the way a neshama is designed. First of all, a human is designed that way. Every human has das. There's esek echsa nefesh. The nefesh aliki is otechet esek echsa nefesh. Shenishtal shemiyam. We learn Perek Gimmel. And in Perek Gimmel says, Barichas, the idea of das is shkashrus, v'schabrus. Wie kommt da rein Moshe Rabbeinu? What's he doing? The beer is going to be that there's two kinds of neshamas. There's the neshamas which are in idealistic state, the way they are, be'emes via neshama dav zayin, is that they are the way they come from Atzilus. So it's true that shenishtal shalom every neshama be'etzem does have this das. The problem is that once the neshamas are nishtal shal, so they lose their koyach hadas, which we're going to understand why, and therefore we need Moshe Rabbeinu. This is going to be the pashtus. So at this point in the Maimer, just for clarity, a neshama datzilas daf neshama ken Rebbe. It's only for a neshama debiyah and a chanami. But that's what since Reva neshamas are neshamas debiyah, so most people do need a Rebbe.
And repeat that. What does the Rabbi add?
So the Rebbe gives das. Pashut. Was heißt that the Rebbe gives das? The Rebbe is going to be giving so he's going to explain later in Siv Gimmel what das is, but some kind of recognition or reality in Elokus which you have through a relationship with the Rebbe. Now, if you're neshama datzilis, so lachatchila you have it. You don't need the Rebbe. I mean, this is the pastures. Later in the Maimon it's going to change, but at this point, the ideal Yid is a neshama datzilis. He's connected to the Eibishter. Was heißt in neshama datzilis? Hot das in Elokus. No. So if once I've slipped from that original state, which all neshamas come from Atzilus, but they go through a system of ishtalshalos. Once I'm not there, I need to be helped back up to become back to what a natural Yid is, that he has Akar and Elokus. This is the Yisod al Rebbe Tavegestelt, the idea of a Rebbe. Raimehen. Islam. Birin in Biktsara, Diniksi, was right is Beis Yisrael, Zera Adam, Zera Behem. So the Taich of Chassidus in the Pasuk is that the Eibishter has lechatchila set up Klal Yisrael in two categories. There are those who are Zera Adam, there are those who are Zera Behem. The Chlolos Neshamas Yisrael Nechlekul Shnei Sugim Zera Adam Zera Behem. Zera Adam him Neshamas Datzilis. Shegam b'deres Harishenim Omuat. V'Zera Behem him Neshamas Debiyah. Asher Kemat Kol Neshamas b'deres Neila him Zera Behem. Shenikru Kein Mishum She'em Behem Das. So the idea of a Behem is someone who doesn't have Das. And this is Reiv V'Anashamas. Let's just stop over here a second, just to clarify an important point. What does it mean that we say that there are neshamas of Atzilus and neshamas of Biyah? Alright, all the neshamas come from Atzilus, yeah, and all the neshamas come through Biyah. Let's just understand the Pirush HaMilos. When I say I come through something, it's not a state. If I am here, by definition, that means that I have passed through the stages of coming here. Biyah means that I am in this world. Yeah? So, it's impossible to be here without, it's like, it could be you could have kvitzis aderech, but you came, once you are here, pshat is that you are in Asir. Just Mag did this a little bit better. It's a Yisayidistik in a Kud. The concept of Ishtalshalus is not Valazei Shteit Nesvar. It's Muchach from the Metzias. There's no such thing as having someone come from stage A to stage C without going through B. Why? Because if someone's going to say, I went from Germany to Russia, so by definition that means that you passed through Poland. Was heißt? Because Russia has two chidushim biyachas to Germany. One is that he's not Germany. Secondly, he's also not Poland. Now, it could be you did it b'kvitz aderech and you did it b'rega echot, but in Havana you did over here two chidushim. So it doesn't make a difference how long it took you to do. So in every inyan of Ishtalshalus is in Havana I have over here, just because the Eibush is making the world b'rega echot. So right now what the Eibush is doing is in Havana more than one chiddush. Right? The side the world has tziyur, and side has yeshes, and side has different levels of yeshes. So this world is by definition it's biyah. In neshamas, but generally speaking, there's meichin midas and maise, which is nefesh ruach and neshama, which are the outcomes of biyah, because it was nishtalshul. So there's different levels of how the way this. So if you are a neshama in this world, you have come through biyah in Havon. There's no way out of that. If not, then you're not here. I mean, anyways, being here is not like a specific space. It's not like Atzilus is somewhere else. It's that you are mugder in these gedarim. So that's what biyah means. So what's heißt das Sedon Neshamas da Atzilus? So the idea is that they are here b'derech ma'aver. So all neshamas in their identity be'etzem, who are they? They are zera adam. Meaning a yid be'etzem has meichin amidas, the way they are in Atzilus. And this is it's going to be negeah for Havana in a second to understand how this is going to function. Every yid is like that. Elamai, he comes down into Bria. Now Bria means he becomes mugdir in a certain level of yesh, shariya yesh, or however we say it. Then Yitzira is, that's already mechza al mechza, murif, chetze, mechza tev, chetze ra, and then he becomes asiyadik. So the way in the neshama datziyah is today is be'etzem neshama datzilas, which went through a shtashlis. What's attached to neshama de Bria? Is he came into Bria and he became Bria, but from Bria he passed through and gained whatever he wanted to glean from those levels, but he didn't become them. He used the levels. That's called derech meifer. Yeah. So he passed through this level. So be'emes, all neshamas are really neshamas of Zera Adam. That's what the gather of a neshama is. As be'etzim it's all about machshava and he's shaykh tatzilis. But some became, or most became Zera Behemitic. Mele, they lost the status of having this level of das. Why is it going to be negeya? Just because later we're going to say it's impossible to work. Could Moshe Rabbeinu give a goy das? Come over as nicht. What Moshe Rabbeinu is doing, he's being megala what a yid has. That be'emes in identity, we all come from atzilus. And what he's doing, he's pasturing his araya to bring that out. So this is the Havana as Sidor Zera Behim. Okay. Now, how is Mesakim this Indian? V'inyon shel Moshe Rabbeinu hu lahamshich das b'neshama shel mechina Zera Behim. Ki Moshe hu mishivas hareim hamamshichim chayes v'alikus lechlalos neshamas Yisrael shelachen nikra b'shem reim. U'Moshe hu klalos kula v'nikra reim mehem. So what we're saying over here is that Moshe is a rei. He's from the Shiva rei. But between the rei and Gufa, he is the klolos kula. So he is the main or the general rei, which has to be explained. And therefore in Zayar he's called Nikra. He's saying over here, the Lashon HaZayar is always Moshe is rei mehemne. Why? Because he's mamshich das. And this gufa that is mamshich das is because he comes from das ali. Good. So that from the masbez I never every prat. Bemis, this is mamish kimat lashon Tanya. This piece over here. This is Tanya Perek Mem Beis. So first, just for some background, there are two kinds of. Where does this idea of Shiva Reim come from? It says that when Mashiach comes, in order for Mashiach to, one of his main Avedis is going to be to Tchias HaMesim and to be Masada Yuchsin. He's going to have to organize the families and be Megala who's what. It's going to be the Aved of Mashiach by Tchias HaMesim. So he's going to need help because it's a lot of work. So it says in Gemara and Sukkah that there's going to be Shiva Reim and Shmeina Nesichim B'nei Adam. And it says over there lists. There's going to be the 7 Rayim are Avram, Yankiv, Chanech, Moshe Salach, David. Don't remember exactly Moshe. These are the 7 Rayim, and then Shemona Nesichim. What's the difference between? Why do we need both? So in Chassidus is mavur that the Shemona Nesichim are princes, yeah. And then there's shepherds. What's the difference between a prince and a shepherd? So the shepherd is bepashtus. In Yonah is hashpah pnimis, which means that in Yonah he's what's the hagdara of a shepherd? In Yonah is to take lechem lefiataf to feed Yid. Mira kosher, mira harach. That's the idea of a shepherd. It's actually interesting. There's a new hagdara. As far as I know, it's mamish a new. It doesn't say anywhere else. In V'kibla Yehud in Peizayin, it says a tifera hagdara in a shepherd. What's the specific inyan of a shepherd? It's not just feeding; it's to take to pasture. What does that mean? The rei doesn't feed. Eine megale klum. That's the lashon. He doesn't. Sorry, eine mechadish klum. Is no megale. Bepashtus. You have a farmer who has animals and he feeds them carrots or he feeds them hay, he feeds them straw. That's called feeding. The rei doesn't do that. All he does is he takes people to the right place and they feed themselves. He takes sheep and they feed themselves. So he's not megala anything. Sorry, he's not mechadash anything. He's only megala. Which has been pnimius. This is going to be the real havana of what a reya is. As Moshe Rabbeinu is megala the emunah which a neshama has. Well, Moshe is not giving anything, not being mechadash. He's what does it mean to feed? He's letting it pasture. He's letting it come out who these sheep are. That's the idea of a reya. What's a nasikh? This is pashat a negea for the context. The prince. Why do you need the nasikh? So, I don't know, in America it doesn't mamish exist. It's a schwere Sache. In places which have a royal family, so there's something which royalty gives to a country which the government doesn't give, which is
Supposed to give.
supposed to give. Yeah. What's that? What's the idea? I mean, it does give identity, pride, a sense of belonging. I mean, in every government in the I think in America it's like a chiddush that it doesn't work like that. But in every government, so much in Eretz Yisrael, there's the head of government and the head of state. It happens to me in America, it's like the same person, but it's two totally different jobs. What's the job of a prince? He doesn't do anything. What he does is the lashon is makif. He creates a atmosphere where you belong. This is the country. When the princes roam the country, what they do is a hibnuf, sehiptuf. Doesn't do anything else. That's what the Nasi Amdina, whatever he's called, or the Rabbi didn't want to call him Nasi, the president of Israel. All he does is his function is to comfort or to encourage. Al derech zeh so zwei sorten tzaddikim. This is what Alter Rebbe says in the Terei Miketz. There's two kinds of tzaddikim. The odd tzaddikim, which in Yonam is to teach, and teaching is ashpah pnimis. I know today what I didn't know yesterday. I grew. And the only way to teach is atak has to be lechem lefi ataf. He has to teach something on my madrege. That's the type of shpah pnimis. Then there's tzaddikim, which in Yoni is makif. So he says a dugmas is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was probably the classic reya. Yeah, he took Yidden out of the matzav achurban and rebuilt Yiddishkeit and Yavnech Hachana and cared for them and taught his kin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai takonos lefi erech hadeir v'cholu. But when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai needed someone to daven, he sent a message to Rabbi Chanina ben Deisa. What's Rabbi Chanina ben Deisa? What does he have that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai doesn't have? So Zog the Alter Rebbe, he's connected to the Eibishter on a different level. He's a prince. He's a nasikh. He's nicht kein mashpia. He's nicht kein melamed. He's not teaching anyone. He doesn't have any. You're right. There's nothing to gain from it. Davened. So al derech zeh, you could have a relationship with the Rebbe. You could come and take from the Rebbe certain things. And then there's a different thing. You could come and watch the Rebbe. What is to watch the Rebbe? So the lashon of Alter Rebbe is the stakel tfilosa shel tzaddik. Pashut. So that's a value for itself. Now, it's interesting. There's a famous letter from the Rebbe Gimmel Tammuz Tavshin Yud, where the Rebbe says, as Nesiach Chabad have both a Nosich and the Saya Nosich and Saya a Reya. And I mean, it's interesting. The Rebbe handled with this a lot. This whole idea of Nesichim and Reyim. It's actually there's a we deal or just the Nesichim from the Gemara, but in Zohar there's a different set of Nesichim. The Reyim, which is Bechlolus like the Ushpizin. The Ushpizin that we have are the Reyim from which we celebrate the Mashal Yitzchok, Yosef. They're not in the Gemara. And Rashi explains why. Like there's a whole reasoning of it in Kabbalah, in Zohar, and this is the way we usually pass, and that's the Shiva Rey. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, Inyonei is Rey. And he's called the Klolos Kulam of Rey. Why? Not Nesichim. There's two functions. There's being mashpia, let's call it Sedad Tzaddik, but Tzaddik Leir is Pana Heda, Pana Ziva, Pana Adara. There's a certain makif which a Tzaddik creates. And that's a certain, and there's that relationship with Rebbe, which beferish exists. You could bring a child to a Rebbe and look at the Rebbe, so Ganesh Satan. Then there is Reyim. In Reyim, the Iker is Moshe Rabbeinu, is Das. These Shiva Reyim, each one of them gives a specific thing. There's Aaron in Ba'alei Scham Amorim talks about Aaron being Mamshech Ave v'chol. Everyone has a different tafkid. Moshe in Yoni is Das. Now, the yesod of all of Pnimius is das, as we're going to see later. Therefore, he is Klalos Kula. Maftech the Kol Shit, the yesod for everything. So, therefore, when we say Le'inyan Re'im is Moshe Rabbeinu's Klalos Kula, he is the Re'ya HaKlal. And that's why he's called the Rai Mehemna, which we translate Rai Mehemna, the loyal Shepherd. Pashtus is that he's loyal to his job. He's totally devoted to his sheep. He's totally devoted to his shlichus. That's the idea. Now, just to add one more knech, this is a Yisaidisik Havon. Says the reason why is the Rebbe Yosef Madreg is das Eli. Yeah, and this is Be'emes it says in Tanya, this idea of Yosef das Eli. Das Eli means that he is das of Atzilus. Just like we say about Avram Avinu, that he represents Chesed Atzilus, so Moshe Rabbeinu in Yoni is das Atzilus. Why do we need Moshe Rabbeinu? What's the Havon? So what's Moshe Rabbeinu giving that I don't have Mitzadatzim? So, or let's ask differently. Why Bichlal do we need a special das of the Nefesh Elikis? Why do we need a special das of provided by Moshe Rabbeinu? Every human being has das. What you could tell me is, you want to teach me, don't spend your das on learn Torah, and then you'll have das about Torah. Learn about Gadol Hashem, you'll have das about Gadol Hashem. Over here, we're not being mashpia information. We're being mashpia das. There's a bechinas adas which every person gets from Moshe Rabbeinu. Fragt sich der Pastor Shaila, why do we need that? So the answer is we have to understand that das doesn't mean knowledge, information. Das means, as in English is translated as my opinion. When you say in Hebrew, mein Dea, Daiti, it means my opinion. Was heißt? My opinion means, as sich abgelegt bei mir. This is the way I see things. For a person to understand and follow a conversation where that it says in Chachma and in Bina, that's not a struggle for a person. But it's impossible for a person to understand Gadlus Hashem, which the maskana is. What's Gadlus Hashem mean? As animal vade, Meila, I'm insignificant. And my Metzias Ersh begins because Anin Evresi the Sham Sheskeni or Alin Len Evresi says that's the touch das. And das is going to be not I understand what you said. Das is going to be I hold so that this is my opinion. I, by definition, cannot hold that I don't exist. That's ein chavish matter satzma. A person can't jump higher than his own head. So it's impossible for somebody to understand that. Al derech that we say like Mesiras Nefesh. A person can't decide that there's something more significant than him, something worth dying for. Because I can't take my own life. I can't climb out of myself. I, by definition, my inyan is that I'm supposed to be. It's like it's impossible for somebody to say that. The only way you could have a massive Mesiras Nefesh is because you have something called Neravaynish Masodam. As really, there's a deeper identity in myself, which is Bichlal not my survival. Meaning there is the Nefesh Ativis, which is about me. Then there's another, it's like we've slipped behind enemy lines, we've pushed, implanted in the human something which in Yoni is not him. In Yoni is the Eibishter. Which is a crazy idea. But that's a touch. It's like blown a different identity into me other than myself. And I identify more with the Eibishter than with myself. Which is a crazy idea, but that's the Taich Nasham. And that's the only way, the rationale for Mesiras Nefesh. So we have a phenomenon called Yisim Mesiras Nefesh, and there's no other way to touch it. There's obviously something going on over here that he's not about himself. The Chiddush of Chassidus is I could learn Perek Beis in Tanya, Perek Yud Ches. There's a Etzem Nefesh. Every Yid has a neshama. Kommt Perek Gimmel and says not only every Yid has a neshama, also his Keiches Nefesh also function like a nefesh alikis, meaning he could understand not himself. That's a Taish Das and Alakus. And that's why it has to come from Atzilus. It has to be that there is obviously in Atzilus, what's made Das da Atzilus? The Emes von Alakus leicht. We're saying that this very same thing is implanted in every person. So not only in ein Wort, not only the Etzem HaNefesh, but also the Keiches HaNefesh of the Nefesh Alikis are from Atzilus. They are, so in Yonam is, and that's the only Taichin Ave. And every inyan in the Nefesh Alikis has to be understood that way. How could I love something which is not me? And it's not for me. It's
against me.
And it's against me. Yeah? I mean, befrat if you're going to teach it's avod mesuteret, so that's going to lead me to Mesiras Nefesh. See, this, so be'emes ayid, even his keiches, who is he? Potentially, every person has in himself the keich to be not himself, to be ad kedei kach, he could understand, not just understand, he could hold. It could be my opinion, daiti azeh. Look, that's impossible. So the answer is Moshe Rabbeinu is das Ali. He is das of Atzilus. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is das of Atzilus, he could provide this inyan by every yid. He could help every yid find this inyan. But
he's helping you find, or he's giving it to you. He's helping you find it, or he's
so that's there's two stages in our mind.
Helps you find.
Dervaila was saying he gives it to me,
but it's not something you have because it's something that's higher than you.
No, so it's something which every yid be'emes comes from Atzilus. So be'emes every yid does have this in. So Lama Zagan Agoy can come and some Rebbe, the Fabreng is not going to take him. It's not going to. He's not going to talk to him. He could follow. He may be stimulated. He may even be inspired. He's not going to be convinced. It's not going to. So that's Aloshin in Chassidus as das is as select zechap as setaka. I say, this becomes my opinion. It's impossible. Now this inyan is negeya, just for clarity. This has nothing to do with the problem of guf. Says, a yid needs a rebbe, not because he has a guf and nefesh b'hamis, so mele he has a struggle, so therefore, lule, lam sagen neshama viseis, neshama viseis would be enemies of Ashchina. Rebbe has to help him get out of the blot. It's nishtemmes. This is a chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. The setup of the way neshamas work, as neshamas, need a rai mehem. The fact that a yid, my neshama is a zera behema, has nothing to do with my guf. It's not because it was yorod laguf. It's not because of taivas or nisyonis or things. It's because it's a lower kind of neshama. It became a neshama the brio, the yitzir. Kumtois edafam na Rebbe. There's no other way for him to relate to the Eibishter. In fact, in Tanya, it's very clear. He says, after explaining the importance of a Yid having das and Moshe Rabbeinu providing him with das, he says, but, however, we have an issue of a guf. Yeah? So he says, and for that we need a separate solution. Yigias basar and zarichas hazman in his bonus, partially because of the guf. But up until now we weren't talking about the guf. In other words, the very nefesh itself. Let's say it in Pashta Verter, Mezok says dam Meseire Bachsidim. You have different. Says I think the Friedrich Rebbe said about Shilim, as he's now in Gan Eden hearing Chassidus from the Rebbe Nishma. Yeah, and the Rebbe said different things like that. I think about Pinya Alters, there was such a lashon, Beis Tammuz of Gimmel. That now I heard Chassidus from the Shver. If I'm not mistaken, it was about Kotlarski, yeah. What's his name? David? Yaakov David. Also, unsere Yaakov David is named after him. He's Yaakov David. So the Rebbe also said such a lashon. It was a big pella because these lashonis were used amal for Shilim. Like it was for Shilim was considered like a heichazach, and over here the Rebbe said that about Bacher. But what's the idea? Now, for Savam na Rebbe, now in Gan Eden, is that a lakus? Having a shaykhs with a lakus, you need a Rebbe, nothing to do with the guf. This is the lachatchiladik setup of Klal Yisrael. As is da a neshama, and so da a rai mehemna, which connects him, which gives him das. This is the way it works. What's the time frame?
He says when the Neshama goes back, he doesn't go back up to Atzilus. He goes back. He stays in Bia until.
No, Gan Eden is not Atzilus. Yeah, Gan Eden, Bepashtus. A neshama is a nivra. Just for clarity, a neshama is a nivra. Neshamas Atzilus are not regular neshamas. A normal neshama is a nivra. It's a different kind of nivra. It's a unique nivra. It's a lakus shenas nivra. It's a nivra. I mean, the neshama sins. Yeah, the Eibusha doesn't do averis. It's neshamas. I mean, if you serve, what's the good? No, the neshama needs cleaning.
It needs cleaning because it was in the guf when it sinned. The neshama didn't choose to sin.
Of course, the neshama. Bechira is in the neshama. I mean, the person. Verstehe, but the bechira. Where's the bechira?
But I mean, the ear is.
Okay, this is very important. I am my neshama. And this is my real identity. And when I do an Avera, obviously it's because of the Nefesh Bahamis has enticed me. But therefore I've slipped into this. Who did the Avera? Everyone did the Avera. So it's Lekech Reish Malchus Tais Golas Hashchina. My neshama is connected to Malchus Datzilis. And when I do an Avera, so even I schlep with the Eibishter. Why? Because my neshama is connected. I did the Avera. The neshama goes in Golos.
The way it explains in Tanya that when you have your Esukechas and Nefesh, which are Megala, only when you're doing something which is Shach to Kedusha. Whereas the Esukechas and Nefesh Bahamis are Begilu when you're doing everything else. When you're doing an Avera, that your Esukechas are not involved actively. They may be passively affected, but they're not actively involved.
So it's not working lefi their rotzen, but they are here. Meaning they're being in Perich of Dalet, yeah. What's happening over here? I've pulled my nefesh alikis into a situation of an avera, right? That's why, and it works the opposite also. When I do a mitzvah, that's the Tachtenim, Perich Lamed Zayin. I'm using the nefesh bahamis for there isn't this business that kilo. There's two. It's two identities. It's not two people. There's one.
Saying that neshama sins. Neshama.
He practices a sin.
Forced to believe.
Yeah. Fine. And what I'm saying is that the neshama is a nivra. There's different. It's me. There's shishim ribi neshamas. There's only one Eibishter. There's if you bow down to a neshama, it's called idol worship. It's not recommended. He's a human. It's a very special human. It's a yid. It's a noch a sug in the bria. It's a fifth sug in the bria. Aber it's a nivra. Beferish. It's a nivra. And therefore, I go back to my original place, which is in Gan Eden. This is where we belong. This thing is going to Atzilus. This whole musig of going to Heichel of Atzilus. That's why Neshamas Atzilus are totally different kind. This is Zera Adam. It's not just like, it's Mevartich Mizvertel, Sein Bries, Sein Atzilus, Sein Ax, it's a totally different kind of thing. It's like a not human Yid. It's like he never became part of Nivra. He remained a chelik from Atzilus. It's a modern zach. It's not. That's like a. So let's just come back to the way it works. So the Eibishter made Yidden, and Yidden have neshamas. Therefore, potentially in Inyan Geret, because of where they come from, they could have das. But Lopel today, the Nivroim. So a Nivra can't understand. I can't understand that I don't exist. So the Eibishter Amad v'shaslam b'chol deir, special neshamas, which are neshamas that Atzilis, that they are bichlal a shtickle Eibishter, which is some kind of. I mean, over here you have to be careful exactly how you say it. That's the type of neshama that Atzilis. That's what Atzilis is keach hagvul of alakus. And these neshamas, they are take by them lachatchilas aleik zech das of alakus. And when a neshama, the biyah, relates to such a neshama, he could bring out by him, or could provide him with his das, that he can sich uplegen alakus man. And alakus could make sense, and it could become his opinion. This is the idea of das. This is the relationship of a Rebbe with the chassid.
The gala del lakus in the nivra. In the neshama has
Yeah.
two parts.
It's a space.
There's lakus shenas and nivra. So the Rebbe
Right. Kilo brings out that
lakus.
lakus sheba. Yeah. It's kilo bringing out that because he has such a source. Later in the Maimon, we're going to see that me'ever anor. Yeah. That kisikna evdivri is meloshem me'ever anor. That all neshamas be'emes come me'ever. They come from behind the river that says be'emes neshamas have a high shadish, and therefore it's possible to talk to them. But that's what we're doing. Und das ist our Rebbe. So this is in Chabad language, this is a Chabad Rebbe. As Aveda Pnimis, the Aveda of Das, the Aveda soll sich ablegen in Alakus, das ist ein Reim